Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Authors to Know and Their Books to Read. My name is Martinique Brown. I'm so excited that you have decided to tune into the show today. I actually have author Judine Slaughter on the show, and she has written a book along with her co-authors called Writing is Essential: How to Use What You've Got to Get the Job Done. Judine, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you again. I appreciate it, Martinique.
So, can you tell our viewers just a little bit more about yourself?
Okay. I during the day I work at the Federal Aviation Administration, and then at night I come home and I am the executive director of the United Black Writers Association.
Oh, wow.
So, mhm. And I've had this association for a little more than 10 years.
Mhm.
We've had three Afrocentric book expos in the mall at Prince George's. And before the Caribou bookstore closed, we met there monthly for 5 years. We had face to face monthly meetings for 5 years. But then Caribou Books closed, and we and the demographics of the mall at Prince George's kind of shifted. So we still have a Yahoo page.
Okay.
We really haven't met face to face since that time.
Okay. I know that you said that because Caribou's bookstore actually closes. Are you like planning another space to begin to meet at?
I had thought about planning another space,
Mm-hmm.
and because now independent bookstores are coming back,
Okay.
so there is a possibility. I've met with several people who would like to have face to face meetings on a monthly basis, but we just haven't planned anything yet. But that's probably next year we might start.
Okay, that's good to know. So, why did you actually decide to write? Writing is essential. How to use what you've got to get the job done.
Well, this was purely an assignment from the creator.
Okay.
So last year, I started giving interviews at the in the eLife Media Studios
Mm-hmm.
once a week. So I did it for 13 weeks, and I re-signed up for another 13 weeks. And these were writers from different professions. And everybody was giving me so much good information
Mm-hmm.
about their journeys. So I just threw it out there. Well, what if we put some of these interviews into a book? And a lot of people were like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So I wrote up a contract, sent it out to those who I had interviewed, and six of them said yes.
Oh, that's good.
Mhm.
So is it more so that this is a guide that somebody can actually use in order to write the specific genre that they are going to write? Because I know your co-authors are different genre co
They
different
are.
genre authors.
And that's a good question. I appreciate that. It does not give you specific information
Mhm.
on the different genres, but we tell our story and how we got started.
Okay.
But I did revise the book. In the back, I have four references, book references, where somebody can purchase the book to get started. Each of those books are under 150 pages, so they're not really big books. And all four of them are just to get you started, because so many times people are just afraid to get started writing. And it really doesn't take a lot. And even to self publish does not take a lot of work. But once you do, then it provides so much intrinsic motivation
Mhm.
that then maybe you'll want to revise what you've written. Maybe you want to get it edited. Maybe you want to go ahead and see if you can write, if you just get an 8-page book. If you go to lulu.com, you can get a book published, and it doesn't have the title on the spine, but nevertheless, it's a physical book. And once you do that, it really, I've seen it where it gives the author then, because it only takes one book to make you an author, it gives them so much motivation and builds their self-esteem to continue to do something greater.
So now I know that if I was somebody that was actually writing a book, I would be so hesitant, especially if I didn't know other authors, to find out what was the best company to go with for publishing or editing and things like that. Can you explain to our viewers what Lulu is?
Lulu.com is a self-publishing site where you can upload a Microsoft Word document, and you don't even have to create a cover. Just if you have a title, they'll just put the text on the cover page with your name, and depending on how long your manuscript is, they will then within 2 weeks, I'll say, they will mail you a book. But now it costs depending on how many pages your book is. But I've used Lulu, and I think my book was about 36 pages, and it cost maybe $20. So,
Wow.
So that might seem a lot.
No. I think that that's good. I
Right.
was thinking you was about to say 100 and something dollars.
No. And the thing about it is you decide on how many books that you want. If you like what they send you, you can order more. You can just order one at a time. You can order 10. But I have used Lulu myself, and it's a great motivator.
So now I know that you actually mentioned, that these different um, co-authors got together and you was hearing their journey. Is it more so their story of why they started writing, the difficulties they had, during that time, and like the good times that they had with publishing a book?
Well, it does that and more. Each interview was directed by, I asked questions, but then those questions might have morphed into something else. And so I let the interviewee or the author in the book speak on whatever we were talking about. So yes, that they tell their why they like writing, how writing affects them, whether it's spiritual or not. And some give their books that they've read that were motivating to them. So each interview is quite different.
Okay. So now what are actually the different genres that the co-authors actually have written?
Okay, we have historical, inspirational, motivational, fiction, nonfiction, and Christian writer.
Okay. So now I know a lot of times the interviewer never gets interviewed. So what did you contribute to the book?
Oh, um, for one of my interviews, it was a young lady that I work with,
Mhm.
and she is a nonfiction writer. So am I. I'm a nonfiction writer. So what we decided before we started the interview is that we had a red table talk. If you've ever watched Jada Pinkett Smith's
Mhm.
Red Table, and so she's basically about nonfiction. She's talking about real life issues. So I bought in a red tablecloth, and the questions that I asked her then to ask me those same questions.
Mhm.
And that's how I was able to contribute to the book.
Definitely. That's good. That's good. That I think that that's really different because I've actually never heard of a book that um, has that type of, I guess, more so that type of storyline or um, thought process. I've just never heard of anything like that. Is that a common type of book that
It
people write?
is not. It is not.
Okay.
And that's what makes it unique because, well, for one thing, I will say my journey, I didn't read a book by a Black author until I was 20 years old. It was one of Dick Gregory's first books.
Mhm.
And that started me on the journey of reading Black authors. And then when my oldest daughter, was in 11th grade, she wrote poetry. I said, I wanted her to try to get some scholarships for college. And I said, let's put your poetry in a book. She initially did not want to do that, but we did. And she received $10,000 for 4 years to go to
That's
Trinity.
good.
She was very intelligent, but
Hmm.
I believe publishing her book helped her to get the scholarship. So I then, and after publishing her book, I joined the Black Writers Guild of Maryland. They meet in Baltimore. They still meet in Baltimore. They meet in the Enoch Pratt Library. And I joined that group with her. We started marketing her book, and then I self-published my own book. And from that journey, when it came around that I thought about publishing the book this year, I had already had experience in self-publishing, but I had done everything myself. I had done the cover for both my daughter's book and my book. I did the copy editing. I had bought PageMaker. This time around, I hired a graphic artist. He did the cover at 120 Design Studio. He did the cover and the United Black Writers Association logo. And I hired two editors to help me. One was a copy editor, one was a line editor. And then I went to Ingram Spark, and they were my printer. I hired them as my printer. So all of this came together from my past experience. And so that's why I encourage people to go ahead and just try one book, because there are so many book jobs that you never know where just that one book could spark your motivation to do something else in either in publishing or just in life, on your job, or when you create a business, because everybody has to write. Everybody has to write, whether you fill out a job application or write a note to the teacher. Everybody has to do some form of writing.
Hmm. Hmm. So, how do you actually think that Black authors contribute to the literature world? And I'm asking that question because um, if we have someone that is watching the show um, that really does not feel like their story could, be of benefit, how would you motivate them to get started writing?
Okay. So when you go to the grocery store, you see many types of cereal. And there's a benefit because you have a variety. With there at one time in America, it was illegal for Black people to read or write. People were lynched, people were killed or maimed if a African American, a person of African descent, tried to read or write. And there is a residual energy around that in the Black community. So to encourage people, we need to hear your story. When I was going to school, from primary even through college, most of the books that I had to read or assigned were from white authors. But everybody, even on the same topic, everybody has a different perspective. And so I want to hear your perspective. That's why we need, and not only that, as we infiltrate the publishing world, then we don't have to have an African American section, because you don't see it too often now, but I believe some brick and mortar stores have an African American, like the bigger published book stores. But I want, we should have so many books out there that we no longer need an African American section. And I just recently I attended the American Library Association conference, and there was a woman of African descent, and she was a children's book author. And so the bookstore said, "Okay, we're going to put your book in the African American section." She said, "No, I want my book in the children's section." Because even though it had African American characters, she wanted everybody to be able to read it. And that's what we want. And so this book says a lot of people might have stereotypes on Black people writing, especially if we are critiqued by white authors. But this book says, no, Black people can write, people of African American descent can write anything and everything just as good as anyone, as any other race.
And you know what? From you saying that about the children's author, I never thought about it like that. Because if there is a child that we're going to act like this child is old enough to decide which section they can go to. So if there is a child that is white, they probably would not have the desire to even go over to the African American section, as opposed to if her book is in the general children's section, then he's more likely to be introduced to her book.
Well, not only that, but a parent going into the bookstore might just simply go to the children's section
Mhm.
with their child. And so if that African American author's children's book is only in the African American section, the parent did not discriminate intentionally.
Yeah.
They just took their child to the children's section,
Mhm.
which most people do. So that's why her book needed to be in the children's section for everybody to read, because people of European descent need to read our stories also. They're
Mhm.
just as valuable as any other race.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So how do you all fight that? I guess there's author groups that try to make a difference in that area of bookstores. Is that what happens?
No, I believe the bookstores make that decision.
Okay.
Well, and also to combat having an African American section, of course, now we're having African American bookstores, brick and mortar bookstores,
Mhm.
which is good because then people can go, if they want an African American book, if that's what they know that they want,
Mhm.
they can go to that particular bookstore. So that's one way we are stopping that, to say this is a bookstore that focuses only on people of African descent.
Okay.
And there's a lot of them, especially in the uh, DMV, District, Maryland, Virginia area. And this will hopefully, I want these bookstores to thrive.
Mhm.
And by bringing them to light, then maybe universities will then say, okay, for their reading curriculum, they'll get an African American book, a
Mhm.
book written by an African American author, and make it a part of their curriculum. And I'm not talking about African American studies.
Mhm.
I want to see our books as part of a general study, a required book, general studies.
Mhm. So, what can the average person do in their, I guess, in their community bookstore? Um, could they just bring that up to the bookstore owner? Like, how do you feel
Yes,
a person goes about
yes.
doing that?
They can go to the bookstore and they can request the book from the African American author. And in that, if more people do that, then hopefully they'll bring in more books that will just be there on the shelf. So that's one way. But another way is for African Americans to start writing, get rid of the fear of your words, of somebody accepting your words, because the more you write, the more you read, then you will become better at that craft. The more you practice that craft, you will become better at it, reading or writing or anything that you desire to do. So that's why this book, Writing is Essential, I named it that because in primary school, we're taught that reading is fundamental, and that is true.
Mhm.
Reading is the basic, reading is fundamental. But what's the next step? Writing is essential. So we want you to write all the time, as much as possible, so that you can hone your craft and then become a published author. You won't be afraid of revisions because I'll tell you, when I first published my book, that's why I self-published, because I did worry about how it would be received. But then for this book, and that was in 2003, for this book in 2019, I been from 2003 to 2019, I've been writing, getting my work edited, and I felt more comfortable. And so that's what allowed me to be able to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to get the book reviewed. It's got a lot of 5-star reviews,
Mhm.
but it's only with practice. I didn't just come out of the gate with this book. Many authors do. Many authors can come and that be their first book, but that wasn't my case. I had to continue to write, continue to get my work edited to feel more comfortable and that's what gave me the motivation to publish this book.
Definitely, definitely. Now, I do have a question for you because I know that you said the very first book you did self publishing and you did everything. But
Yeah.
this second book, you actually contracted a lot of the work out.
Yes.
Do you feel that it became easier for you because you did contract everything out that second
Yes.
go around?
Because
Okay.
I knew what to expect.
Mhm.
Because I had done the work myself, even for the cover, 120 Studio Design, they did a fantastic job. They just asked me what colors did I want, just basic information. And, he did the cover and it was great.
Mhm.
But I did, oh, initially, he didn't have the title on the spine. And so when he gave me my proof, It had the front cover and the back cover, and it matched the specs required by the printer, but it didn't have the title on the spine. And so, I typed back to him. I said, can you put that in? He said, the spine, because the book is 100 pages, he said, the spine's too small. And I said, no, you can do it, because there have been books with less pages. I said, if this book is going to be in the library, they need to see the title on the spine, because that's how it's shelved. And so he did. He did do it.
He made it work.
It worked.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if I had not published myself, then that might not have been something I was looking out for. I might have accepted it and then had to go back to him to say, oh, you know what? I need the title and spine. So before it was even, before I sent the cover to the printer, it had the title on the spine.
Okay. And one thing that I would like to just quickly ask you is, if somebody does not have the finances to contract somebody else, do you feel that Lulu is the best route for them to go, to just go ahead and self-publish and do everything themselves?
Yes. And it really, with Lulu, if you have, I believe their minimum pages might be 36.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have that information right now, but whatever their minimum pages, amount of pages are. And let's just say you just said, put the word love on each page.
Yeah.
And uploaded that manuscript to Lulu. They'll say, do you want a color for your cover? You can pick that, put your name on the cover, and that is honestly how easy and how inexpensive it can be to self-publish a book.
So now, what is your overall message that you want readers to walk away from reading your book, Writing is Essential?
The overall message is to just write. Don't worry about grammar. Don't just get your words out on paper. And for instance, if you go through Lulu, and you are a reader, then you'll see your mistakes and you can mark them up yourself, or you might give the book to somebody else, and because it's such an accomplishment, or you might just publish for your family legacy, because what I do tell people, if you have a manuscript, and you should pass, what would your family be more likely to keep, the manuscript or the book? Right. More than likely, they will keep the book as your legacy. So that's my mantra. Just one book makes you an author, and you can easily go to lulu.com tonight. And even I've seen books where the book had a lot of blank pages. And so let's say, for instance, you want to make your own journal. You could say on the first page, this is my journal, have 35 blank pages, upload that to Lulu, and there you are. You've made your own journal. But that journal is a book.
Definitely. So now I know that you've actually written quite a few other books. What is the name of one of your bestsellers? And can you just tell us a little bit more of what it is about?
Okay. So I have co-written, I edited Clear Skinned, and that's letters. It's a nonfiction book. It's letters that I exchanged with my oldest child's father. So that's why I say I did co-write it, but I initially did not want people to know that these were my letters. So the book says it was edited by me. But once I had published, and I, so of course that's my bestseller
Oh,
because it's the
wow.
only book that I have written that I've sold. The other book, Do It Yourself Publishing, I have free at authorsden.com. If you go to authorsden.com, put in my name, Judine Slaughter, go to books, you can get a copy of Do It Yourself Publishing. And I've never charged for that.
Oh, wow.
So Clear Skin is my bestseller.
So now, why did initially you did? How come you did not want, I guess, people or the readers to know that those are your letters?
Oh, because uh, I there were so many reasons.
Yeah,
We won't get into that today.
I understand.
Okay,
But why did you become comfortable with now telling people that those are your letters?
well, one of the people who reviewed it
Uh-huh.
could tell, and they said, you should tell people that this is your story. And
Okay.
so that's why I don't mind. But initially, the young man who I exchanged the letters with, he told me, he asked me, are you saving the letters? The
Mhm.
notes, the letters that he wrote to me. And I said, no, I didn't see any reason to save them. He says, you're going to write a book. And that's what motivated me to save every scrap of paper that he gave me. And I just happened to have drafts of the letters that I wrote to him. And because that's how much I wrote. And I put them together. They didn't have dates on them, but my mother saved them in her basement. So 20 years later, I put those into a book.
Oh my gosh, I bet you that is a good book.
Thanks.
Now, how can people order that book?
From Amazon,
Okay, okay.
amazon.com.
And if you guys are actually interested in purchasing Judine's Writing is Essential book, remember that the Amazon link is in the description box. So now, Judine, can you tell our viewers about your business, United Black Writers Association?
Right. Because after I started attending the meetings at the Black Writers Guild of Maryland, 3 years later, well, I asked them if I could start a chapter, a PG chapter. And they said yes. And that's how we started with meeting at the Caribou bookstore. And then I branched out and said, let me change the name. And that's how it became the United Black Writers Association. But I'll tell you, I have that because I want people to know, I want the world to know that yes, Black people write. Because I, as an African American on jobs, have been where my employer said, but can you write? And I'm like, well, I needed to complete a writer's application for this job. Yes, I can write. And I've heard this story or where an African American might go to a writers group that's primarily European Americans, and their writing is not, they want their writing to be changed or it's not accepted. People have told me this. And so there are no fees to be in the United Black Writers Association, because anybody who picks up a pen, puts it to paper, is a writer. And that's what I want people to understand, that's how simple it is. Being a writer is not a profession. Being an author is a profession. Being a journalist is a profession. But being a writer is not a profession.
So now this is looked at as a support group.
Yes. And that's the extension of the book. The book is a support. So what I want to do next year is have it like the Chicken Soup for the Soul series.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe next year publish writers of different not necessarily genres, but different professions and what was their writing journey. Because in writing is essential, not everybody is an author. The one person, the historical writer, she is not an author, but she is a writer.
Mhm.
So next year in 2020, I hope to publish another book similar where it's a combination of a collection of people from, let's say, doctors. I haven't decided on who, but let's say doctors. And well, what kind of writing do you do, for example? That's my vision of where we're going to go with this.
Mhm, mhm, definitely. So now, if you all are interested in joining United Black Writers Association and you're in the DMV area, make sure that you reach out to Judine. Like I said, her business Facebook page is listed in the description box, so you can reach out to her. Judine, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Martinique. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
You are welcome, and thank you all for taking time to watch another episode of Authors to Know and Their Books to Read. Make sure you continue to share this episode as well as like and follow our personal and our business Facebook pages. If you truly enjoy these shows that I have, I would love for you to go ahead and visit my GoFundMe um, page as well. And make sure that you also subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you'll always be notified when I post new shows. I hope you guys have a great night and we will talk to you all later. Bye bye.
Good night.